Friends, so good to see all of you here. This is Shabbat Shuvah. We're going to begin a very special Shabbat tonight. Shabbat Shuvah is always the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It is so named because the special Haftorah that we read at the during Shabbat morning davening is taken from the book of Hosea, prophetic book, where the return of Israel is described metaphorically. It's a very complicated book, actually. If you're looking for a novelization of it, an incomplete novelization, you should get Milton Steinberg's The Prophet's Wife. He actually wrote it without the ending, and so some really interesting authors suggested possible endings there. Debbie, happy 80th birthday to you, and I'm so glad you wouldn't miss a white shirt day. By the way, to make you all laugh, and then I'll get back to the Torah, whenever I start the live feed, I put a few hashtags in when it's Friday, and I say, white shirt, hashtag must be Friday, hashtag Shabbat Shalom. Today was the first time that I wrote hashtag must be Friday, and Facebook told me that there are more than 1,000 posts of that. Now, we only have had 643 broadcasts, which means we must have started a fad. People must be wearing white shirts on Friday because of what we do. Who knew? All right, so I want to connect the idea of Shabbat Shuvah with the Torah reading that we read this Shabbat. Shabbat Shuvah, again, is such an intense image because throughout the high holidays, we talk about returning. We talk about this incredible energy, the invitation of returning. And we'll talk a little bit more about Yom Kippur energy on Monday and Tuesday morning. But what's really important for us to consider is that in this moment, Shabbat Shuvah, Shabbat is always typified by expressions of God's love, covenantal love. The Shabbat was a gift of a restart, where the same kind of rest that God wanted for God's self, God wanted for us. And so as partners in creation, we are called to be present and pause. But on this Shabbat, the language of pause is even more intentional. It is language of returning to the self, returning to community, returning to God, returning to each other. And among the things that we return to is an idea in our Parsha. So this is Parashat VaYelech. It's very short, but very full. Listen to the language here. After Moses charges Joshua to be the next leader of the people, it says, Vayitzav Moshe otam lemor. This is chapter 31, verse 11. Miketz sheva shanim b'moed shnat hashmita b'chag Sukkot. Every seventh year, the year set for Shemitah, and Sukkot, which just begins not too long from now, when all of Israel comes to appear before God in the place that God will choose, you shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel, which means read the Torah, how often? Every 7 years. I want you to think about that, because until the time of Ezra the Scribe, and that's after the exile of 586 BCE, until then, the Torah was not read regularly. You might find that a little bit shocking because we read the Torah and learn from it every day. But in fact, during the days of Moshe, especially on this, the final day of Moshe, he sets in motion the public recitation of Torah, but not regularly in the way you and I anticipate. Regularly meaning every 7 years. And on the 7th year, verse 13, it begins in Hebrew, Hakel et ha'am, ha'anashim v'anashim v'taf, v'gercha asher bisharecha. Gather the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers of your communities, meaning those who connect with the Jewish community who are not themselves Jewish. That should be a model for the diversity, the wonderful diversity of our living Jewish communities, that they may hear and learn to revere God and observe faithfully every word of this Torah. Their children, listen to this, who have not had the experience shall hear and learn to revere God as long as they live in the land. What a powerful thing. The reason we read Torah collectively, we join as a community and we read the Torah, is because we want our children to learn what they haven't experienced. Now again, we have been through some very complicated times, you and I. And we want generations from now to look back and have learned the lessons that we had to go through so that, please God, they should be spared some of the tribulation. We should learn the dangers of climate change when we look at incredible storms like that in Florida, where UJA is present. We should learn the dangers of war when we look at this sham annexation vote of Ukraine by Russia, and we look at the miraculous stories, as the New York Times is demonstrating, documenting, of the way UJA, through our partnerships, have saved Ukrainian refugees and helped resettle them in countries like the United States so they can have a safe new start. It is so important. It is so important for us to connect the models of the Torah with the real world we inhabit, so that when we come to a Shabbat like Shabbat Shuvah, we know what we are returning to. Of course, we have to bless each other with safety right now. Moses was concerned with the right now, but he was ultimately concerned with future generations, asher lo ya'adu, who themselves had not experienced with physical proximity the dangers and the devastation of the plagues, of the desert generation, of the rebellions, of the scarcity. He wanted his people's children to have a better future. So friends, that's what we must remember. Every 7 years, according to Moses, we must gather together again and learn Torah again, so that if we have forgotten, we will remember. And if we have not ourselves experienced, we will learn. What a gift it is to see over time the increasing frequency of reviewing Torah. Hakel, to gather the people every 7 years, is a mitzvah in this week's Parsha. We don't just learn Torah every 7 years. In fact, Ezra the Scribe, after the year 586 BCE, with the first expulsion and destruction of the Jerusalem temple that year, when Ezra led the people back, he instituted the public reading of Torah every Shabbat. And then increasingly, when the markets met, Mondays and Thursdays, we read Torah. Why? Because that's where the people are. And friends, when the world turns on its head and we for a time cannot go to shul, we teach Torah every day on these platforms where you and I have created a community for 2.5 years, because that's where the people are. And when we are blessed to hakel one more time, to come back together in physical proximity in our synagogues and JCCs and dancing around in the world with safety and mindfulness and trust of science and our neighbors, that's where we bring Torah to. Moses' big concern was that people would forget, and those who didn't experience directly would never learn. We have learned. We will learn. We will do what we must so that we can return. This Shabbat Shuvah is a return. The return of love, the return of proximity, the return of the blessing of community, and please God, the re-amplifying of Torah in lived Jewish space. Yes, Linda, it takes a village. You and I have created a digital village. We must make sure that it's real, it is physical, it is instantiated, it is embodied. We have to take care of our communities. And friends, if I could ask one favor for this Shabbat. This is always the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. If you know people who've served as volunteer leaders for your community, presidents and ritual chairs and ushers and organizers, if you know professionals who've taken care of communities, like executive directors and fundraisers and cantors and rabbis, reach out to them, friends. Reach out to them today, right now, and say thank you. If you yourself have been one of those leaders, I'm saying thank you to you. Because I felt on Rosh Hashanah a Shuvah like I could never have expected. Our people came home. We found each other again. Our children were making lots of wonderful noise during services. Shofar reverberated in the physical ears and air of our sanctuaries. Torah was being shared. Yummy food was being eaten. And we got back to work with our hands and our bodies and our wallets and our time. And we continued the great mission that Moses set out for us. Larger than Moses, larger than Joshua, larger than any generation's work. Because the big promise of this week's Parsha is don't despair, says God through the prophet Moshe. Don't despair, I will never leave you. You will never be alone. So friends, I am thanking you, because throughout these years, there has never been a feeling of being alone, because we have shown up for each other. We made this a permanent hakel in our lives, a gathering. I bless you to feel it in the world too. So, here we go into Shabbos, friends. Thank you for all of you helping build this community and local communities too. It is so important. And Marcy, thank you for your 25 years working in the Jewish communal world. What a gift it is to have devoted professionals like you who give of their hearts, and Arlene, you right after Marcy, and volunteer leaders who give of their hearts, and all of us. Linda, I'm going to use what you just wrote as our punctuation mark so we can go into Shabbos, the Shabbat of Shuvah with hope. Linda wrote, when you walk through the storm, hold your head up high. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. See you on Monday. Take care.